Good morning, my name is Manuel López Rocha from Mexico. It's a shame that I can't be there with you at Stanford, but I recorded this presentation to show you some of my work on type design. I will be reading this presentation so that I don't miss any word or that I don't mess up any word in English. So here it goes, and see you at the Q&A round. The presentation is titled Type Design for Mixe Language, Contemporary Tools, and an Ancient Script Revival. First of all, let's give some context. The Mixe language, also called Ayuk, is one of the 68 languages currently spoken in Mexico. It belongs to the Mixezoque family, along with 6 other languages, among which it is the most widely spoken. The Mixe Nation is located in the northeastern region of the state of Oaxaca, and it is shown in this map. It has nearly 140,000 speakers, most of them located in the Mixe region, but also as migrants in other parts of the country and the world. Like all indigenous languages in Mexico, Mixe faces certain threats of extinction. However, for over 4 years, the Mixe people have initiated several projects to revitalize the language. These include the development of an alphabet and orthography, linguistic research, educational programs, the use of written Mixe in public spaces, and the publication of books, websites, and other materials. In this context, for some years now, at the initiative of some community members, I have developed type design projects to provide linguistic support for this language. This is the first one. Language support in this project was approached differently from others. While many focus on adding glyphs not available in most commercial or open access typefaces, the goal here was to create a typeface that established a closer relationship between the written and spoken forms of the language. To achieve this, I analyzed the visual characteristics of written Mixe to apply specific criteria for form and proportion. I also interpreted some linguistic features to translate them into visual features. Let's start with the first step, the visual analysis of written Mixe. The alphabet developed by the Mixe people since 1981 consists of 16 letters, 15 of them taken from the Latin alphabet and one additional character known as saltillo, which is used not only in Mixe but in many other indigenous languages for the glottal stop, plus 5 characters with diacritics and 1 digraph. As we can notice, almost all of these characters are found in nearly any typeface that is reasonably complete, and the saltillo can be replaced, at least visually, by some other symbols. I will talk about it a little later. However, as I mentioned earlier, with this project I aim to do more than just cover a set of characters. I tried to connect visual attributes with linguistic features. First, I conducted a visual exercise to analyze how strokes extend beyond the baseline and the X height. Here we see how there are many vowels with diaeresis and how those letters and the dots of I and J create a recurring texture. We also can notice that there are few letters with ascenders and that the apostrophe written instead of the saltillo is as high as the ascenders. Below the baseline, the P is clearly distinguishable, but at least with this design, the J and the Y lack distinctive shapes. These examples are taken from a couple of books published entirely in Mixe. Upon examining them, we can observe another relevant feature, the length of certain words. Combined with the lack of automatic hyphenation tools and the syllabic nature of Mixe, which often requires multiple letters per syllable due to consonant clusters and complex vowels. This presents additional challenges. Another common issue when writing Mixe and other indigenous languages is the substitution of the saltillo with other visually similar characters, such as the quotation marks, the acute accent, or the apostrophe. This happens either due to the absence of this character in many typefaces or the difficulty of typing it on a keyboard. For this design, a saltillo was included with its own Unicode code, available in both uppercase and lowercase forms. Based on this analysis, the first typeface design included a relatively large X height and ascenders that are not too long, giving the small number of letters with ascenders. Adjusted sizes for diaeresis and dots to achieve a lighter texture with the dots of I and J. A lower and sturdy saltillo design that maintained good texture without visually breaking the words. A distinctive design for the J and the Y, so that both letters can be easier to distinguish. A slightly condensed structure for fitting long words and syllables in less space. Here we can see a comparison between the typefaces used in the previous examples and the one I designed. It shows how it takes up less space while keeping the word together. The typeface also has long serifs to accommodate combinations of symbols like this, very common in this language. During this process, I asked myself two questions. Could typeface design make a language easier to read? And can a typeface function as a teaching and learning tool? In Mixe, most people, even when Mixe is their first language, learn to read and write in Spanish. So, Spanish orthography interferes with the process of learning to read and write in their own language. Therefore, the goal of turning linguistic features into visual features makes more sense in order for the answer to these questions to be affirmative. The second step of the design process involved analyzing linguistic features that weren't immediately apparent and required a deeper understanding, including feedback from native speakers and linguists. First, the TS digraph was transformed into a ligature glyph since the letter S rarely appears in Mixe unless paired with T. The phonology of the language indicates that some consonants that are originally voiceless, as K, T, or P, are voiced between vowels but retain the original sound when doubled. For example, a K between two A's would sound like aga, but when two K's are written, the sound changes to aka. A similar case happens with some possessive forms that use doubled consonants. To account for these cases, I designed contextual glyphs that appear whenever those consonants are typed twice. As we've seen before, the saltillo is often difficult to access via standard keyboards, leading many users to use other symbols. Since the saltillo always appears between letters in Mixe, the typeface includes an OpenType feature that replaces these characters with the correct glyph. Finally, I designed another OpenType substitution to represent one of the Mixe's most distinctive phonological traits. In Mixe, when a consonant is palatalized, a Y is written after that letter. For example, a P and an A sound like pa, but when the sound is palatalized, it turns into pia, or na turns into nya. However, the Y also functions as an independent consonant at the beginning of a syllable. Similarly, the letter J can modify a vowel into an aspirated sound, from A to A, or from O to O, but J may also serve as a standalone consonant. According to Mixe speakers and educators, these characteristics often confuse readers literate in Spanish learning Mixe. To address this, I use designed features to visually indicate the phonological differences. When a Y modifies the sound of another consonant, it is replaced with a shape that overlays the preceding letter, hinting at the different pronunciation. A similar approach was applied to the J when it modifies a vowel. Here we can see examples of words before and after applying these typographic adjustments. This project established the foundation for subsequent designs. Here I am showing a bilingual text in Spanish and in Mixe. We can see how the texture is smooth in both pages, even when it's different from one to another. Later, we created another typeface called Mutzk, designed for children's or educational text. It follows similar design principles but with different forms. It has more daring graphic proposals, such as alternative forms for vowels inspired by solutions seen in German typography, and the unique Y to indicate when it functions as a consonant. Mutzk has been used in community publications and institutional projects. Currently, Ayuk has only two fonts in regular and italic styles, while Mutzk has 5 weights but no italic version yet. Now, I will show you my most recent project involving the Mixe language. This one delves into a broader topic, the recovery of ancient writing systems. Contemporary Mixe languages are part of the Mixe-Soke linguistic family, descended from ancient now extinct languages. One such ancestor was spoken around year 200 by the Epi-Olmec civilization, which lived in the southern region of Veracruz and developed one of the earliest writing systems in the Americas that preceded the Mayan script. The Epi-Olmec script comprises syllabic and logographic symbols. Some represent entire words, while others correspond to syllables. For example, these are the glyphs for syllables tu and ki, but there's a glyph for the word tuki. In 1993, researchers John Justeson and Terence Kaufman deciphered much of the system. Some Mixe people have embraced the Epi-Olmec script as part of their historical and linguistic heritage. It has been used in murals, workshops, exhibitions, and publications, establishing equivalencies between the ancient script and the contemporary Latin alphabet. This inspired my latest project, expanding my first typeface into a sans serif version while adding a set of characters for the epiol Silbury. This system survives today in two archaeological artifacts. One is the Mojarra stela, and the other is the Tuxtla statuette. While the statuette is housed at the National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C., the Mojarra stela, which is the primary artifact containing these glyphs, is fortunately kept at the Jalap's Anthropology Museum that is just 12 minutes from my home. The stela is a 4-ton limestone slab 1.4 wide by 2 meter high that contains about 535 glyphs and the portrait of a man. I went to the museum to document the artifact, compared each carving of every glyph, and reviewed Kaufman and Justeson's work to redraw the glyphs with a consistent typographic style. The 61 syllabic glyphs were programmed with OpenType to correspond to their contemporary Mixe equivalents. Some syllables have multiple variants, which are available as stylistic alternatives, and I also included a couple of logograms. In this way, a text can be written using the Latin alphabet and converted into the EPI-Olmec script by activating an OpenType feature. The EPI-Olmec script also includes a numerical representation that was later used by the Maya and other cultures, known as long count or cuenta larga in Spanish. The substitution of numbers from 1 to 20 is also programmed into this typeface with an OpenType feature. The original EPI-Olmec script is written vertically, top to bottom, in columns. To accommodate this, I adjusted vertical kerning to ensure compatibility with software that supports this layout. Here we can see an image of the glyphs carved into stone next to those drawn in the typeface, as well as their equivalent in contemporary writing using the Latin alphabet. Studying these ancient writing systems allow us to better understand our history and cultural heritage beyond the colonial narrative that perceives native languages as ones that had not known writing until the introduction of the printing press and the Latin alphabet. Future goals for this project include expanding the system to incorporate logographic glyphs and advocating for its inclusion in Unicode. It's also important to create keyboard layouts for most devices and operating systems, as well as develop tools and dictionaries for hyphenation and word validation. All the projects presented here are works in progress. I hope to secure funding to continue researching and developing more typefaces and tools. Preliminary versions are available for use in nonprofit community projects. If you'd like to collaborate or learn more about these projects, feel free to contact me through social media or via email. I would like to thank everyone who has contributed to these projects. Yasna Aguilar, Tojeu Díaz Robles, Rodrigo Romero Méndez, de Colectivo Mixe, Mixe Juárez, Carlos Armenta, Lorena Ortega, Sandra Garcia, David Jonathan Rose, and many others. Thank you for inviting me to Face Interface. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and I hope to meet you all in person soon. Muchas gracias.